Glasgow Cathedral. It's been here since the early 1100s and it's the best preserved medieval cathedral in Scotland. How many Glaswegians could tell you that? This place actually looks quite austere, but then most Protestant churches in Scotland do. Before the Reformation, and it was a Roman Catholic cathedral, of course it would have been really ornate, it would have been all painted, there would have been statues, a bit of idolatry. So it has changed significantly over the centuries. Here we are, down in the bowels of Glasgow Cathedral, and I suppose an awful lot of Glaswegians don't really think about it, but the city was founded by a man called St Mungo, the best part of 1,500 years ago. But the actual fact is that the man is buried here down in the bowels of the cathedral, and you can actually visit the tomb of the very first Glaswegian. And this huge city, which is sprawled out right round here, all emanates from this man found in this place. Naming it too, Glasgow, the dear green place. And this here is the remains of his church. This plinth here in the centre of the cathedral. And the remains of the man are buried here. There's a wee rhyme that stems from St Mungo, and an awful lot of the kids in Glasgow could tell you if you stopped them in the street. And it runs, this is the bird that never flew, this is the tree that never grew, this is the fish that never swam, this is the bell that never rang. And the wee bit that's tacked on the end is, let Glasgow flourish by the preaching of the word. And all these objects are connected by some way with the legends of St Mungo. For instance, he brought a wee robin back to life, and that's the bird in the story. But look, there's an old medieval stone here from the cathedral. And look, there's the bird, there's the tree, the fish and the bell. And you can see this is on Glasgow's coat of arms, but this is a medieval stone, and you can see these symbols of St Mungo are actually on this old medieval stone that's just sitting here in the back of the cathedral. We're right down at the back of the crypt in the cathedral, and this is one that's a man that's sadly neglected here in Scottish history, because here is the tomb of Robert Wishart, Bishop Robert Wishart, who lived in the late 1200s and early 1300s, and he was one of the great patriots and freedom fighters of Scotland. His tomb, sadly, was probably defaced at the Reformation. Somebody's cut his head off, which is a real shame. But there's not even a sign here telling you who this man is. Robert Wishart fought tirelessly for Scotland's independence. He was a great backer of Wallace. He was a great friend of William Wallace. And he actually presided over the coronation of Robert the Bruce, supplied the Lion Rampant and Saltire at Bruce's coronation as well. And nothing to tell you who this is. And I think what makes it even more insulting is just by his tomb, we have Union Jacks hanging, which was everything the man was against in life, that England trying to annex Scotland. And it's a shame that there's such amazing history and a man that lived through the likes of Bannockburn and all the rest of it here. He was actually captured by the English, and although Bruce was able to ransom him using English captives in exchange, unfortunately he never saw Scotland again, because by the time the English released him he was blind. But he lived long enough to actually see Scotland's independence regained after Bannockburn. And it's just a pity, because he's a name that an awful lot of people that read Scottish history know, but they would be hard-pressed to tell you that he was buried here at the back of the cathedral. A lot of people think that Glasgow was founded on the Clyde, but it wasn't founded in the Clyde. It was founded in the Mollendinner, which was a wee burn that ran down the back of the cathedral here. Obviously, when Mungo founded his original wee monastic settlement, he needed some place with fresh running water, and it was the Mollendinner. Now, the cathedral, believe it or not, and this is the shocker, was consecrated in 1160. 900 years ago, and it's that way that it's the best preserved medieval cathedral in Scotland. And I think that most Glaswegians would be shocked by that, because, I think they take it for granted. They don't think about what's actually on their doorstep. Another thing that most Glaswegians would never ever consider is that our great national hero, Wallace himself, probably originally sat at one time in these stairs. It's funny, Glasgow Cathedral is such a black-looking building, especially inside when you look at the stonework. But it wouldn't have been like this originally. This is due to the Industrial Revolution. Glasgow, of course, was full of industries, furnaces, locomotive works and the like. And it would have actually been a sort of blonde-looking building in its early days. But this blackness you see, and this is inside the church, and it's never lain derelict. So that just shows you how much the detritus and the smoke from the Industrial Revolution has pierced the very fabric of this place. Look at these amazing old doors here. These are ancient, absolutely hundreds of years old. You can see just how old this woodwork is. But what's even more fascinating is if you look at them closely, there's actually still the odd musket ball. There's the lead in there. Listen. That's the old lead balls. It shows the history of this place in the stormy times there have been. One of the reasons that this is the best preserved building of this type in Scotland is it wasn't destroyed at the Reformation by the mob, stirred up by the preachers to violence. The actual citizens of Glasgow held their place in such esteem that they wouldn't let the mob tear the place to bits, and so it's lasted intact, but you can still see some of the ravages where there's been a few shots fired in anger. What a brilliant chair. Look at me. I'm 6'5". It's been a long time since I've been able to do that in a chair. But you've got the names of all the bishops and things of the church here in the wall in the background, and if we go down from the start, as you can see, first bishop was in 1115, was Michael. We come down. Now, there's an interesting one, Jocelyn. Bishop Jocelyn, 1175 to 1199. Jocelyn Square in Glasgow is named after him. But I'll tell you what makes Jocelyn famous, and something that goes on till today. He was the man that started the Glasgow Fair. The original Glasgow Fair, of course, was like folk with stalls and food and people actually having a bit of a holiday. But of course, the Glasgow Fair, where we talk about the fair holidays in Glasgow, is a direct descendant of that very act. And this was the man that started the Glasgow Fair. The guy we were looking at down the stairs, Bishop Wishart, this is him here, 1271 to 1316. This was the man that was a great friend of Wallace and Bruce. As you can see, he's mentioned here. What's really nice about this place is all the old original ceiling bosses, you know, the decoration of the time. These all date from about the 1500s. Still in colour, which is the way, of course, that it was meant to be originally. If you look right down the aisles here, the Blackadder aisle, and the Blackadder aisle is named after a Bishop Blackadder. That's where most of the names in the cathedral come from. You can see all these really ornate ceiling bosses here. I'm sitting on what the Glaswegians here call the Bridge of Sighs. The Bridge of Sighs, of course, because it's the bridge that they brought the bodies over, leading over into the necropolis. But what's interesting about this bridge, although a road goes under it today, this bridge was originally built to bridge the Moreland Inner Burn, the place where St Mungo founded Glasgow here, and the woodland on the banks. And the burn's all tunnelled in this day and age. You can still see vestiges out here and there, and it runs down into the Clyde, down at the court. But this was a bridge built over water at one time, the famous Moreland Inner Burn in which Glasgow was founded. The Victorians weren't the very best when it came to actually thinking about where they were siting things, of course. We've only sort of got around to that in this day and age. You've got this monstrosity of an infirmary here, and it's a shame because the cathedral is built in its shadows, and that huge building unfortunately overshadows this medieval splendour of the cathedral, and it's puts it in the shade somewhat. You don't see it to its best advantage because of the size of the infirmary. But it's an amazing building, you know what I mean? And it's just unfortunate that they sited that next door to it with its big statue of Victoria.